living in a silent mind, freedom from suffering, what to do. So far we've talked about letting go, stepping aside, witnessing, and I've presented analogies and metaphors and visualizations. However, now let's look at some practical guidance that can be applied to everyday living. Here we're going to work in the relative world of manifestations, where apparently there are lots of things we can do. How do we decide what to do? Specifically, how do we decide what actions to take and when to take them? The following 3 words provide a useful framework for understanding what's going on when we're apparently making decisions and acting upon them. Meaning, intention, manifestation. Firstly, you find intrinsic meaning in something. Often you're not exactly sure why, but for some reason it stands out from the infinite things that are being presented to you. It shines forth, so to speak. If the meaning reaches a certain threshold, it leads to intent. You have the intention to engage with that meaningful thing. The subsequent action is the manifestation. How it works. Take the fact you're reading this book or watching this YouTube upload. You've come this far, however, initially you must have found some value, significance or importance in the title or the introduction or in a review, etc. Basically, you found something meaningful. That spark of interest led to intent, the intention to obtain a copy, and then the manifestation of the intent, which was reading these words or watching this upload. It always starts with meaning. It has to, because we can't possibly process the infinite manifestations presented to us. We couldn't function in the world of form if we had to literally see everything before deciding what to act upon. So, how do we decide what is meaningful and therefore worth pursuing? Of all those infinite things presented to us, why do some things shine forth, creating an intention within us that leads to action? If something shines forth, we find it explicitly meaningful. We don't decide to find it meaningful, it just is. It's impossible for us to know why some things shine forth. Analysing and trying to understand is just playing catch-up after the fact. We can, of course, examine past experiences and influences for evidence as to why we're drawn to a particular thing. However, such psychological investigation can only go so far, which isn't very far at all, in understanding the mystery of meaning. And so, practically speaking, be available and responsive to the things that call to you. Allow yourself to see what is meaningful. Recognize the importance of paying attention to what shines forth, and then have the intent to pursue it through action. This is how you will manifest your potential, meaning, intention, and manifestation. When living in a silent mind, what shines forth is in harmony with a deeper reality. The intent born from this harmony, and therefore the subsequent manifestations, are in alignment with the flow of life. Living in a silent mind harmonizes with the universal flow. You're not separate from what's unfolding, you are the unfolding. This perfection of being plays out in the relative world as meaning, intention, manifestation. The perfection of being isn't something to strive for or something you can work towards. The perfection of being is what's left after you've seen through the story of you and dropped back into the natural harmony of simply being. Identifying as your thoughts create the illusion of you. In that world, what shines forth is usually egoically led and therefore unfulfilling both in the pursuit and fruition. The perfection of being lives in a silent mind, which doesn't require cultivation. It's simply waiting to be uncovered. Recognize what is false. Watch the illusionary self thrash about as it tries everything in its power to hold on to its story, the story of you. A silent mind has nothing but compassion and understanding. Therefore, it's kind and gentle towards you as it patiently awaits your return. Returning home, coming back to your true nature. Once the filters of your story have dropped, you return home to that place you vaguely remember from childhood, living at peace in the eternal present, perfectly content and fulfilled in the moment. The planning and responsibilities shouldered in adulthood can't touch the freedom found in the childlike wonder of the eternal present. When living in a silent mind, planning and responsibilities happen, but there's no one being burdened by having to shoulder them. It's only when the veil drops and the story of you is seen through that you realize the time and effort wasted protecting an illusion. Not to mention the suffering felt through the accompanying anxiety, worry, frustration, anger, guilt, and defensiveness. Resting in the peace and serenity of a silent mind is freedom. It's freedom from the constraints of having to constantly defend yourself, your opinions and your beliefs, because there's no one left to hold opinions or beliefs and therefore nothing to defend. This is liberation. Liberation is living in a silent mind. Living in a silent mind is freedom from the prison of your thinking mind. You've been in this prison since forever, so it feels familiar and safe. Anyone who identifies as thoughts is in this internal prison of the mind without realizing it. Within the prison of the mind, life consists of small islands of happiness in an ocean of challenges and suffering, and the best one can do is endure it. At least that's how it seems. There appears to be no release, no parole, and so we resign ourselves to serving our time. The prison of the mind has become a safe haven within which freedom doesn't seem possible or even appealing. The freedom I'm pointing to requires stepping out into the unknown, and that requires faith in something beyond oneself. Even though there's suffering, the prison provides stability, consistency and routine, which has its appeal because, despite feeling restricted and confined, there's safety in the known. But this is a false safety because everything you know is built upon the unknown. For example, a simple question such as, where am I? Could be answered, I'm at home. Where's that? In my hometown, England. Where's that? In the UK, off the northwest coast of mainland Europe. Where's that? In the northern hemisphere. Where's that? On planet Earth. Where's that? In one of the 4 spiral arms of the Milky Way called the Orion Cygnus Arm. Where's that? In a universe of several billion galaxies. Where's that? And this is where the question and answer sessions break down because it enters into the unknown. From a materialist perspective, the stuff we are made of ends in the subatomic world where it turns out that there are no indivisible building blocks and we enter a nebulous world of probabilities, possibilities and potentialities. And of course, there's the question that leads to the ultimate mystery. Who am I? Questions as fundamental as who am I? What am I? Where am I? Propel us into the unknown very quickly. We could add the existential question, where do I come from and where am I going? Which leads us once again into unknown territory, the indefinable non-existence of pre-birth and post-death. From the perspective of the individual self, the story of you, the unknown is frightening. Freedom means the end of the illusion of you, But since that's all you've ever known, there's an understandable resistance in letting go. Living in a silent mind, you are no longer driven to self-protect through fear. Once you're seeing through the story of you, you're open to what's ever happening, because within a silent mind, there is nothing to defend.